Years ago, I watched my mother lose her job after developing carpal tunnel from years of repetitive data entry work. She had surgery, she took time off to recover, and she was later let go from her position. And that moment really stuck with me. Helped open my eyes to the amount of pain and inefficiency that comes from these manual processes and how much opportunity there is when technology is implemented thoughtfully. That experience eventually led me to build Connex, a platform designed to automate e-commerce and eliminate friction behind the scenes. But as Connex has grown, one thing has become very clear. Even the best technology struggles if the story isn't clear. Our customers sell complex solutions, integrations, payments, automation, and explaining that in a way that resonates is a marketing challenge, not an operational one. And that's why I'm excited to welcome today's guests. Kham Inthirath is an AI advisor, business growth strategist, and the founder of Compound Effect. He's been on the show 6 months ago, but I wanted to bring him back because he's making a bold claim that he can help companies save 3 months of work per employee annually by using AI to solve team bottlenecks. Today, we're going to find out exactly how he does that. So, Kham, welcome back. For those of you who might have missed our first conversation, can you give us an executive summary on your background and tell us a little bit about Compound Effect?
Yeah, over the years, I ran a full stack agency for about 10 so years, and go to market is my background for 20 plus ish years. What I saw during the pandemic when I ended up sunsetting that agency and then starting Compound Effect was it takes a village to grow a business, and there's all these different elements, when you're looking at digital transformation, leadership training, culture, marketing, sales, all that stuff. And that was really the genesis of Compound Effect, was like looking at the whole business ecosystem to scale and grow. Because most oftentimes people think they can just grow a business through one challenge, which is often sales. So that what we're trying to do is like just understanding what are the business bottlenecks and how do we solve that with AI.
And you mentioned about saving 3 months of work, and that's a lot of time. And to a busy CEO, saving 90 days of work per employee sounds almost too good to be true. How are you measuring that time savings, and where is that time usually being leaked before you step in?
So that claim is not a promise to every single client or leader, Joseph. It's a claim that was actually a case study that a client told me because they did a good job. At the end of the day, it comes down to how well do you track your people, right? Their productivity, their capacity. I would say 9 out of 10 companies don't really do that well. They really don't know where their time is spent. I mean, yeah, there's SOPs and processes, but if you really get down to nitty gritty, like, are we time tracking everything? And I've done time tracking with my own team, and usually what I'll do is like just do it for a few months because I'm not looking to micromanage. It's to get insights, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone wants ROI. How do I know what's my ROI? Is it 3 months? Is it 1 month? Is it 1 week? Or how many hours a week? So just running some type of a tool to kind of track like how long does it take you to do these different things, and if it's administrative work, communication, meetings, like whatever it is for your role, now you have some insights, right? And then you off of that, then we start layering in AI pilots, different things to kind of like figure out where can we automate or augment some of the thing you're doing, and then say, okay, now let's compare our benchmark data to the new data. But yeah, that client that told me about the 3 months, like they had that data already. So when right off the bat, when we built the workflow, he said, "Kham, you just saved us 3 months of work per employee, and each employee is making around 200K salary." So the ROI was easy for him as a leader to calculate.
So how did you save his company 3 months? You make some sort of a chatbot or LLM, or what does it do?
They do very extensive research. So they're constantly looking at. So they're in the finance industry. So they're looking at documentations. They have to then audit that. So I mean, these things could be 30-ish pages, right? And they're also looking at compliance, and it's ongoing every month. So we created a workflow. We also created an assistant. We also trained it on the documentation. So then now that employee can just speak to that agent, and then it can just update the document so that when they do the reporting, it's done in a minute versus it would have taken them hours and hours. And also on the flip side, they used it for sales. So like showing that they had this really rich capability to do this type of like really intensive documentation, intensive like quality control, and tracking, they led that on sales calls, and they showed that, because normally you wouldn't lead with that, but the fact that they were able to do that in minutes, it showed how sophisticated they were as a company, and that helped them also on the sales end, even though originally the whole purpose was on the operational side of it.
So it sounds like you created this content generation machine, and there were people at $200,000 a year writing the content, but you created this AI automation to automate making some of these documents for people, and that's what saved them all that time.
Yep, cross-checking it, making sure they're also not making mistakes, right? And then we're human, so it's also double-checking everything, and so there's time savings across the board.
And does it work? Is it like a chat GPT where they created a document, you upload it to this chat system? Is that how it works?
They were using Gemini, so we were using. They actually have two different instances. So we were using ChatGPT for communications. That was easy for them to kind of distill information and then come back with like maybe an email summary, right? So again, like where like there's critical thinking in place, but then for things that are repetitive, that's where you can leverage that, and that that could take anywhere. Mm-hmm. If someone had to look at a complex report, distill it, put into a presentation, and then communicate it, that's easily a couple of days of work, right? Just like in between what they're doing the day to day. So now that can all get done in a few minutes, maybe 30 minutes. We were using Notebook LM to keep the information consistent, because with Notebook LM, there's a less chance of it hallucinating and making up things, because it will always go to the source. So if you upload like 2 or 3 sources or whatever sources you have, it's always going to reference those sources. So that was really important, because again, what they're doing on the finance side, they wanted to make sure it's following the framework and parameters of this particular document. So they were using Notebook LM to create that information, that report.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I've used ChatGPT, and sometimes it's given out bogus answers. I was on another podcast episode. I was looking at Colts quarterback Phillip Rivers, and it's a couple of days after his first game. And I asked ChatGPT, I said, yeah, how'd he do in his last game? And ChatGPT said, he hasn't played since 2021. I said, well, he just played like a week ago. And I'm arguing with the LLM over Phillip Rivers and the Colts. And I'm like, well, here's a link. He did play. It was like, oh, yeah, he did play. So it can give you the wrong answers sometimes. So when you go into these mid-market companies, what are the most common team bottlenecks that you're seeing for these solutions that you have? Are there people that just don't want to adopt them?
Yeah, it's all over the place, and depends on the which department you walk into. But overall, in general, what I noticed is that there is definitely a large percentage, I would say the 70s or so, that just need literacy. What is an LLM? Right? They think AI is just ChatGPT. They're looking at it from a tool standpoint and not from an AI infrastructure standpoint. So the first bottleneck is just understanding knowledge and like what this really is and how it impacts their role and responsibilities and their potentially their career, like the future of work. If we go a little bit deeper and just say that we look at, let's say like a sales team, for them it's a mix. So salespeople, they are doing their own, they kind of beat their own drums. Yeah, here's your sales enablement if they have assets or their sales process. But what those that are proficient, they'll leverage the AI to really help them fine tune and personalize different things. They're not going to build any automations, because that actually takes other tooling, and they're not AI architects in their own right. But departments who actually start to weave in some automations and workflows and like research agents and things like that, they start to really level up their sales department. But oftentimes, again, like, it's no different than a sales department or other departments, not understanding the use cases. So the bottleneck is like really not understanding what they can do to actually level themselves up.
Yeah, I see. You don't have an understanding of how they want to use things, so it's hard to build a software that makes it work. Now, you just mentioned Google Gemini. How does the Google Gemini's ability to process large amounts of data for a team clear out those bottlenecks faster than other tools like a ChatGPT?
They call it tokens. So think of tokens like memory. Like Gemini has over 1 million tokens, so it has a larger memory like space where ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT increased theirs recently. It might have gone up to 400,000 tokens. They're at like 100,000 before. We're seeing this with other providers too, like Claude. So, but no one's as close to 1 million like Gemini. So what that means is when you're having conversations with it or you're doing work with it, you don't have to remind it as often. It also doesn't forget as often because it has a larger space to remember based on its token level, versus think of it like a cup of water.
Yeah, I've used ChatGPT for marketing materials, and I'm asking a question. It's like, well, who's your ICP again? I'm like, well, we just talked about that. Like, I'm in a project. I'm like, we just talked about that in the last conversation. You already have the context. Sometimes it's forgetting things, so I have to remind it.
Yeah, Yeah, so think of it like a cup of water. Like maybe if the analogy is, like ChatGPT is a smaller cup of water and Gemini is a bigger, larger cup of water, taller. So the water doesn't spill over as quickly, which is the memory.
So because of the tokens and memory, Gemini is removing some of these bottlenecks. Have you ever used Perplexity at all? That's more market research,
Yep.
isn't it?
Yeah, I actually just used it several times today. Like I actually like Perplexity for research. So I think to that Philip Rivers situation there, if you went there and asked that question, it would have brought back more accuracy than ChatGPT. That's why I lean on that one, because it's built for search engines. So the information I feel is a lot more real time.
Yeah, it's good to know. I'm always learning about new tools. I didn't know there was a notebook LLM. I'll have to take a look at that. But pivoting to the world of e-commerce, one of the biggest bottlenecks is product data and catalog management. How can AI help a small team manage thousands of SKUs without losing 3 months of their year to manual updates?
This is the perfect use case. I actually just had a conversation with another e-commerce. They have like all these SKUs too, and they're basically trying to figure out like profit strategy, which products, which SKUs are actually making us money, where are we losing money. And they never looked at it that way. They just had all these SKUs, right? They never done an audit. So now you can take all that information, just drop it into a database. The AI can help look at the SKUs, but also tie it into revenue data and say and purchase data. Okay, say which one of these are doing really well, which one we haven't sold much yet that we should be selling more. Because there's two sides of also understanding that data. Is like on the behind the scenes, you're managing the SKUs, but you also just want to make as much money as possible on these different products. On the front end, though, if you care about the user, which most businesses should, because the product that is selling a lot might be less profitable for that business, but that is insight. There's a reason why they keep buying that product. So how do we evolve our product in our SKUs? Maybe we have to add additional products. So it's balancing that. Now you have insights probably from customer success, which is different from a department that's managing the SKUs. So having the data all connected, you can look at it collectively and then have better accurate insights on like what's actually impacting the business.
Yeah, good to know you can have those kind of accurate insights, using the AI. Many of our listeners at Connex are dealing with data bottlenecks between their sales channels and accounting teams. How can AI act as a bridge to stop those two departments from slowing each other down?
I run into this often when I'm definitely doing these workshops. Is I always, people think we can do a company-wide like literacy, but then what I always tell the leaders is we need to break these down by departments, right? So you have like the accountants have things that they need and they want. So does the sales team, but they have to work together, right? Because the business is an ecosystem; they're all interconnected. So each of those departments has to define actually what they're trying to accomplish and what's in it for them. But then how are they supposed to work together? What is it that they need from each other? Once you understand that, then you can start thinking about business use cases for AI. Where does it weave in? So oftentimes they're kind of like in their own silos doing their own thing. But once you have a conversation, you bring those teams together and say, okay, what is it they need from me? How do you want to receive the information? What are the outputs, like inputs and outputs? Then that's when you start to say, okay, this is where it makes sense to layer an AI or automation in those connectivities, but also getting some insights and even like proactively, communicating those things and insights back and forth so that you're not reacting to it. And then these two departments are feeling more unified.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I agree that many departments are often running in silos. For an e-commerce founder who feels like their team is drowning in digital chores right now, what is the first step they can take to start reclaiming those 90 days of lost time?
Number one is to, at the very least, I think, especially for leaders who are trying to navigate, like, where does AI fit for my company? I need to understand this. They are trying to get confident in what they're trying to do here, Joseph. So I say, look, there's tons of these free, like, AI ones out there from, like, IBM and Gemini. Like, take that at the very least. So now, level set, you get your knowledge base. So then you can be more confident and think strategically of where to use AI for yourself, for your company, for your department. The next thing is then identifying exactly what those AI uses can be. So if they have ChatGPT, they can open up their own thread and just ask a question, like say, hey, I need you to help identify and uncover use cases for me. Here's my role, here's the industry I'm in, and it's going to give it to you. I ran these workshops all the time, and it takes like half a day. So I actually built a custom GPT. I call it the future work GPT, Joseph. So now I just share that with my clients before I do a workshop, because I was doing it was a repetitive thing. It's a repetitive conversation I was getting. Now they just put their title in, their role in their industry, and then boom, it says, here's all the different ways that AI that is impacting can help you today. It also says, here's where it can increase and impact productivity in the next 12 months to 36 months because AI is always evolving so quickly. And then it gives an ROI because that's a common thing that leaders, especially founders, like they want to understand, like, is it worth my time here? So there's tons of tools like that out there too that you can find, but those are the quickest way to get clarity on how it's going to help you in the first 90 days. And then you just pick one or two of those to start deploying.
Kham, these are some great answers. And I just want to thank you for coming back and breaking down how we can actually give our teams their time back. It's definitely a powerful mission that you share with our Connex e-commerce business. You can connect with Kham at getcompoundeffect.com or find him on LinkedIn. And if you're listening and your own bottleneck is manual data entry between your sales channels and accounting, that's exactly why I built Connex. We want to help you reclaim your time so you can focus on the big picture growth Kham talked about today. Visit connexecommerce.com to see out how we can help. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a leader who needs to save 3 months of work this year. Thanks, Kham.
Yeah, you're very welcome.